Sometimes you encounter an idea that, well, it just clicks and it
Yeah.
can shift your whole perspective.
hmm
Today, we're exploring one of those potentially perspective-shifting ideas. We're diving deep into a really core teaching in Buddhism called not self, or anatta.
Yes, anatta. And our main guide for this exploration is a very foundational text, the Anatta-lakkhaṇa Sutta.
The Anatta-lakkhaṇa Sutta.
Okay. Yeah, you can think of this sutta as almost a direct line to the Buddha's earliest teachings. Its title literally translates to something like the Discourse on the Not-Self characteristic.
Right, so it tells you exactly what it's about.
Pretty much. And these were words spoken to his very first group of disciples, just 5 of them. So it gives us a really unique glimpse into the beginnings of this whole understanding.
So we're going right back to the source here.
Absolutely.
And our goal today isn't just, academic understanding. We want to try and unpack these ancient concepts, especially these things called the 5 aggregates or khandhas,
The khandhas.
and also the principle of impermanence, Anatta. Unpack them in a way that's, well, hopefully clear detail, but also really sort of lands for you, the listener.
Exactly. Because the sutta suggests that getting handle on these concepts leads to what's called right understanding.
And that has consequences, right? Significant ones.
Very significant. And it's key to remember the Buddha wasn't just laying out abstract philosophy. He was offering a practical framework for understanding our own lived experience, the nature of why we suffer, and the path away from that suffering.
So this isn't just theory. It's meant to be applied.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So as we explore, maybe consider how these ideas resonate with what you actually observe in your own mind, your own life. You might find it offers a new lens.
Okay, let's start then. These building blocks you mentioned. The 5 aggregates, the khandhas.
Yes. Think of them like the basic components that make up everything we conventionally label as self.
Like taking apart a machine to see how it works.
Kind of, yeah. The first one is form. That's rupa in Pali.
Rupa. Got it.
This is the physical aspect. Our bodies, the material world, anything tangible, basically.
It seems straightforward enough.
And then, right away, the Buddha makes this pretty striking claim. Form is not self.
Not self. Okay, wait. That immediately feels a bit odd, doesn't it? Our bodies feel very much like us.
They do. But think about it this way. Can you really control your body completely? Can you command it not to age or get sick or injured?
Well, no. Obviously not.
So the Buddha's reasoning is, if this form, this body, were truly your permanent essential self, then it wouldn't cause you affliction, it wouldn't change against your will. You'd be able to say, okay, body, stay exactly like this, or don't feel pain.
Ah, I see. And since we can't do that, since it leads to suffering precisely because it changes and gets sick?
It can't be the ultimate unchanging self. It's subject to conditions beyond our absolute command.
That makes a lot more sense when you put it like that. Oh, okay, so that's form, Rupa. What's the second aggregate?
The second is feeling, or vedana in Pali. This is simply the raw experience of sensation. Pleasant, unpleasant, or just neutral. The tone of experience.
Like feeling warmth from the sun or a headache or just
Right.
nothing in particular.
Exactly. And again, the teaching is, feeling is not self.
Okay, same logic applies, I guess. We don't choose our feelings.
Pretty much. Do you decide, okay, now I will feel happy, or now I will feel sad? Or do feelings just arise, often depending on conditions?
They definitely just arise, sometimes annoyingly so.
Right. If feelings were truly self, wouldn't you just keep the pleasant ones running 24/7? The fact that they come and go, often uninvited, suggests they aren't some fixed core of who you are. They're responses, experiences passing through.
Okay. Feeling, vedana, not self. What's number 3?
Number 3 is perception. The Pali word is sanya.
Sanya.
This is about recognition, identifying, labeling, recognizing a sound as speech, seeing a shape and knowing it's a tree, understanding a concept. It's how we make sense of sensory input.
Making sense of the world.
Yeah.
And, let me guess, perception is not self.
You got it.
Yeah.
Perception is not self.
Why this one? Perception feels pretty fundamental.
It is fundamental, but think about how perception works. Is it always accurate? Is it purely objective?
Well, no. We misinterpret things, see things based on our mood or expectations.
Exactly. Perception is heavily conditioned. It's influenced by memory, biases, language, culture. What you perceive isn't just raw data, it's an interpretation, a construction. So it's a process, a mental function, not a static, independent self.
Okay, that makes sense.
Huh.
Perception is also a changing process, not a fixed thing. This is starting to form a pattern. What's the fourth aggregate? This one sounds complex.
It can be a bit tricky, yeah. It's determinations, or sometimes translated as mental fabrications or formations. The Pali is sahahar.
Sakhara, okay. What does that cover?
It's a broad category. It includes things like intentions, volitions, impulses, habits of thought, opinions, prejudices, basically all the active mental stuff that shapes our character and drives our actions, other than feeling and perception.
So, like deciding to do something, or habitual reactions, mental patterns.
Precisely. Think of it maybe like the mental impulses or the programming that runs our responses. And following the pattern, determinations are not self.
Even our intentions and choices. How so?
Well, if Sakura were truly yourself, wouldn't you have complete mastery over every single thought, every urge, every intention?
Oh, definitely not. We all have intrusive thoughts or impulses we wish we didn't have.
Yeah.
Or make choices we regret.
Exactly. That lack of total control, the way these mental formations often seem to have a life of their own, pulling us this way and that, it points to them being conditioned phenomena, arising and passing, not a stable, controllable core self.
Okay, Sakura. Mental formations, intentions, also not self. So what's the fifth and final one?
The fifth is consciousness, vinyan.
Yeah, just being aware.
Basically, yes, it's the fundamental awareness of something. Awareness through the eyes, seeing consciousness, through the ears, hearing consciousness, nose, tongue, body, and also through the mind, awareness of thoughts, memories, ideas.
So the awareness that accompanies the other aggregates.
Exactly. It arises dependent on the sense organs and their objects. And the final piece, consciousness is not self.
Now this one feels really core. How can awareness itself not be self?
Well, is your consciousness one single, unchanging thing?
No, it shifts constantly. I'm aware of your voice, now a thought, now the room.
Precisely. Consciousness isn't a monolithic entity. It's a stream, arising moment by moment, dependent on conditions, an object, a sense store. It flickers from one object to another. Seeing arises, then hearing, then thinking.
So because it's dependent and always changing, it can't be a permanent independent self either.
That's the insight. It's a function, a process, not a fixed entity.
Wow. Okay, so for all five, form, feeling, perception, determinations, consciousness, the argument is the same.
Yeah.
If they were really self, we'd control them completely, and they wouldn't lead to suffering or dissatisfaction.
That's the essence of it. Their very nature being subject to change, often uncontrollable, and potential sources of pain when we grasp at them demonstrates they aren't a stable, autonomous I or mine.
And this directly leads into the next big idea, right? Impermanence.
Exactly. This concept of anatta, impermanence, is absolutely crucial. It underpins the whole not-self teaching.
How does the sutta bring this out?
The Buddha directly asks his disciples systematically about each aggregate. Bhikkhus, he asks, is form permanent or impermanent?
And they reply,
Impermanent, venerable sir. And he repeats this for feeling, perception, determinations, and consciousness. Same question, same answer each time.
establishing the groundwork, they all change.
Yes. Then he follows up. Now is what is impermanent, painful, or pleasant?
And again, for all five.
For all five, the answer comes back, painful, venerable sir.
Now, painful here, does it just mean physical pain? Or something broader?
It's much broader. The Pali word is dukkha. It includes physical pain, yes, but also emotional suffering, stress, dissatisfaction, anxiety, the inherent unsatisfactoriness of things that are constantly changing and never quite live up to our desire for permanence.
So anything impermanent is inherently dukkha, unsatisfactory, because we can't rely on it.
That's a good way to put it. If something is always changing, any happiness or security you try to pin on it is inherently unstable. It's bound to lead to disappointment or suffering when it shifts or disappears, which it inevitably will.
Like trying to hold on to water.
Exactly. So this leads to the clincher question the Buddha asks regarding each aggregate again. Now, is what is impermanent, what is painful since subject to change, fit to be regarded thus? This is mine, this is I, this is myself.
And the answer must be.
Affirm no, venerable sir, for each one.
The logic seems really tight. If these components of our experience are always changing, anicca, and that change itself makes them inherently unsatisfactory or stressful, dukkha, then it makes absolutely no sense to identify them as a permanent, stable, core self, anatta.
That's the progression of the insight. You see the impermanence, you understand the inherent unsatisfactoriness of clinging to what changes, and therefore you realize it cannot be a true, lasting self. It's like, as you said earlier, building on shifting sand.
So, seeing this clearly, this connection between impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and not self, that's the beginning of what's called right understanding.
Yes, right? Understanding samadhi in this context is precisely seeing these five aggregates as they truly are impermanent, sources of potential suffering when clung to, and ultimately empty of a permanent independent self.
And it's more than just intellectually getting it right.
Oh, much more. It's meant to be a deep experiential insight, a shift in perception. The sutta really hammers this home. It says, again, for each aggregate. So, bhikkhus, any kind of form whatever, must, with right understanding how it is, be regarded thus. This is not mine, this is not I, this is not myself.
Any kind, whatever, that sounds incredibly comprehensive.
It is. The text specifies. Whether past, future, or presently arisen, whether gross or subtle, whether in oneself or external, whether inferior or superior, whether far or near.
Wow. So absolutely no aspect of form or feeling or perception or determinations or consciousness can be claimed as me or mine. It leaves zero wiggle room.
None at all.
Right.
Understanding is seeing this truth applied to absolutely everything we experience without exception, seeing it all as processes arising and ceasing, not fixed things to own or identify with.
Okay. So what happens then? What are the consequences of understanding this so deeply?
The sutta describes a clear progression. It says, bhikkhus, when a noble follower who has heard the truth sees thus, he finds estrangement in form, he finds estrangement in feeling, and so on for all five aggregates.
Estrangement, that sounds a bit negative, like
Wait,
alienation.
It can sound that way in English, but the Pali term nibbida is better understood as a sense of dispassion, disillusionment, or turning away, but in a positive, healthy sense. It's not alienation, it's more like seeing through an illusion.
Ah, so it's like losing interest in clinging, becoming detached because you see it's pointless.
Exactly. When you truly understand these things aren't a permanent self, you naturally stop grasping at them so tightly. The intense identification fades, you loosen your grip.
Okay, that makes sense. Estrangement leads to...
When he finds estrangement, passion fades out. Passion here translates viraga. It means the fading of craving, of lust, of attachment, the driving force behind clinging.
So understanding not self directly cuts at the root of craving.
That's the key connection. Craving thrives on the illusion of a self that needs to acquire, protect, and perpetuate itself through these aggregates. When that illusion starts to dissolve through understanding,
the fuel for craving diminishes.
Precisely. And the sutta continues. With the fading of passion, he is liberated. Liberation is vimutti, freedom.
Freedom from?
Freedom from the cycle of suffering, from the grip of craving and ignorance. The sutta describes the state of the liberated person. When liberated, there is knowledge that he is liberated, he understands. Birth is exhausted, the holy life has been lived out. What can be done is done, of this there is no more beyond.
That sounds profound. The end of the struggle.
It represents the ultimate goal in this path, the cessation of dukkha, suffering.
And did this actually happen for those first 5 disciples listening?
Remarkably, yes. The sutta concludes by stating, now, during this utterance, the hearts of the bhikkhus of the group of 5 were liberated from taints through clinging no more.
Just from hearing and understanding this teaching, wow.
It underscores just how transformative this insight into not-self can be. It wasn't just a theory for them, it was the direct cause of their awakening.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, let's try to summarize the core takeaways for listeners.
I think the main points are, what we experience as self is actually composed of these 5 aggregates: form, feeling, perception, determinations, and consciousness.
Right, and the crucial insight from the Anatta-lakkhaṇa Sutta is that all 5 of these are constantly changing. They're impermanent.
And because they're impermanent and subject to conditions we don't fully control, clinging to them as a permanent self is inherently stressful or unsatisfactory.
Therefore, none of them can rightly be called mine, I, or myself. They are not self-anatta.
And seeing this clearly, developing that right understanding, leads naturally to a fading of attachment and craving.
Which, in turn, leads towards liberation from suffering.
That's the heart of it.
So, here's maybe a final thought to leave listeners with, something to reflect on. Think about something you strongly identify with right now. It could be anything, maybe a job title, a relationship role, a core belief about yourself, even a physical attribute. Just pick one thing. Now really consider, how does this principle of impermanence apply here? Is this thing truly fixed, or is it subject to change? And what might it feel like to view it less as being you and more as something you experience, something that arises and will eventually cease or transform?
That's a powerful reflection, just observing that potential for change without needing an immediate answer.
Yeah, no definitive answer needed, just an invitation to explore that feeling.
Well, hopefully this exploration of the Anatta-lakkhaṇa Sutta has offered some valuable insights into this fundamental Buddhist teaching on not self.
And perhaps sparked some deeper reflection for you on your own experience.
Indeed.
Until our next deep dive, may your understanding continue to unfold.